Hello, I'm Al Gortz from Boca Raton, Florida. I moved to Boca Raton in 1977 from New York City.
And good morning. Today is March 14, 2016. My name is Bill Gralnick, and I am here with Al Gortz at the Lynn University Television Studio. We are conducting an interview on behalf of the Boca Raton Historical Society and Museum, and are currently interviewing longtime residents about the history and growth of Boca Raton's Jewish community. Al, you've been here for a while, almost long enough to be considered a native. Tell us a little bit about what Boca was like when you first rolled in.
Well, in 1977, it was a smaller community. We had about 15,000 Jewish residents, now about 135,000. There were two temples, Temple Bethel on 4th and Temple B'nai Torah in a smaller location on 4th, not in their current location. It was a rather close-knit community. Most of the Jews were either retirees living on in the condos on the beach, and then as well we had a lot of professionals, accountants, lawyers, and doctors at that time.
What prompted you to leave New York and end up in tiny Boca Raton?
Other than the sunshine?
Well, that's a good answer,
My
actually.
law firm, Proskauer Rose, made me an offer I couldn't refuse and asked me to move from New York to Boca to open an office and establish their beachhead here in Florida.
And you brought with you a young woman who has been a longtime partner in your life. Tell us a little bit about your marriage and your children and your grandchildren.
It's an interesting story, at least from my perspective. I moved to Great Neck, where I grew up, at the age of 11, and my next-door neighbor happens to be my wife. She was 10 at the time. When she first met me, she told her mother that she met the man she was going to marry. I was a little slower to understand that that was what was going to happen. And we dated through high school, college, and got married after college. She supported me and the family when we were in New Haven in law school. We had our daughter during my third year in law school. We then moved from New Haven to New York in 1970 when I joined Proskauer, and I've been with Proskauer ever since.
It's great.
I could talk about Jane longer, but go ahead. Not sure anyone is interested.
When you came here, you said there's a professional community. Boca was sort of known as a white shoes place. What was the Jewish complexion of the legal community that you found? Were there a lot of Jewish lawyers? Was there a segregation between Jewish law firms and non-Jewish law firms?
There was not a segregation. There were a handful of Jewish lawyers at the time. Anecdotally, I remember someone saying to me, why would you come, someone from the temple, and I was a member of Temple Bethel at the time, why would you come and open an office here when so-and-so, another Jewish lawyer, has all of the Jewish clients? And I kind of chuckled at that. There was room for a lot of additional professionals.
A mentor? Was there somebody who helped you avoid the landmines and whatever else is needed to get yourself established?
Well, I was pretty much on my own as far as that was concerned. But if I had to categorize anyone as a mentor, one of our senior partners, George Shapiro, had a home on the A1A, spent a small amount of the time there, and he had known the community at least prior to the time when I came. It was one of the reasons we picked Boca as a place to open an office.
Were you well received here? Was it relatively easy, or was there a lot of elbow throwing to sort of keep you slowed down?
Well, I was certainly well received by the Jewish community, and I was well received by some of the non-Jewish community. I remember a client and a mentor by the name of Chuck Schmidt, who was one of the most prominent residents of Boca, who was quite helpful in helping me organize my practice and grow it, and introduced me to the Boca Hospital, where I served for a number of years on the board and as the head of its foundation. But there were others that, there was nothing overt, but that weren't particularly welcoming. For example, when I first arrived, we located our office in 150 East Palmetto Park Road, which is now the Bank of America building. And since I had no clients and very little furniture, and I thought I'd go and introduce myself to all of the professionals in the building. And there was a law firm there, and when I introduced myself, they said, "Well, what are you doing here? Why would you be interested? We have enough lawyers here." This was a non-Jewish firm, but most of the people were welcoming.
There's an old adage that a lot of business is conducted at the social club. A lot of clients are found in social club relationships. South Florida has historically been an area where social clubs did not welcome Jews. Was that a situation here? Did you find that as an impediment to trying to network, meet clients, make deals outside the office?
Well, I wasn't seeking to become a member of a social club, so I didn't feel a negative as far as that was concerned. And if you think about the time frame we're talking about, 1977 was the year that I opened the office. Boca in general, and the Jewish community in particular, was beginning to grow significantly. So with the reputation of my law firm and my background and credentials, it was not difficult for me to begin to build a significant practice. So I didn't feel that that was an impediment. I had enough to do with the clients that I was getting that I wasn't really. It wasn't necessary that I focus on the social club side of it.
Let's move now to this Jewish community that you found when you got here. There is an organization called the Federation. Tell us what you found in terms of organized Jewish life and your role in creating an organized community here.
Well, I initially got involved with Temple Beth El and subsequently became a board member relatively early on. I'd say probably by 78 or 79. We did not have an independent federation here. We were part of the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. And you probably know Palm Beach County is the largest county geographically east of the Mississippi. Being a member, we were actually the South County division of the Palm Beach County Federation. And there were a handful of leaders led by Jim Baer that were attempting to organize the Federation here as part of the Palm Beach Federation. But as it became apparent relatively quickly that we were really two separate communities, and we could raise more funds for Jewish needs as an independent organization as opposed to as part of the Palm Beach Federation. I joined the board of the Palm Beach Federation in around the same time frame, 78, 79. I recall my role was as the head of the Jewish Community Relations Council of the South County Division of the Palm Beach County Federation. And in that role, and this was sort of a watershed event, and that's why I mention it, I organized a rally on December 10, 1978, on the steps of City Hall in Boca Raton, attended by about 400 Jews from across the community on Human Rights Day. The focus was really Soviet Jewry, because at that time Jews were not allowed, or they were allowed only in very small numbers to leave the Soviet Union. And we had the mayor of Boca Raton read a proclamation. We had the principal of Boca Raton High School speak. We had our congressman, who was then Dan Micah, you may remember, speak. The Deputy Mayor Jefferson Milner actually spoke. I was the master of ceremonies, and I recall that a day or so before the rally, Golda Meir happened to pass away. So at the beginning of the rally, there was a moment of silence in honor and in memory of Golda Meir. And during that moment of silence, I remember saying to myself, looking out at this crowd of 400 Jews who would not have gone up to West Palm Beach to a similar rally, that we really were a separate community and it was time for us to become independent. Now, it wasn't the first time that thought had been discussed, because Jimmy Bear was one who was also in favor of it, and there were a handful of other people. But that moment crystallized for me the fact that we were a separate community and there was a need for a separate federation, which, as I said before, and I think history has indicated that this was the correct decision, that we were separate and we could raise more funds for the purposes that both federations were focused on as independent entities. Now, there's a long history of how that took place, because we became independent. I was just commenting about December 1978. We did not become independent until those documents were signed in my office in October 1979. So there was a process that took place, because the Palm Beach Federation and the leaders of the Palm Beach Federation were not particularly welcoming of the idea of losing us. But after some acrimonious negotiations, cooler heads prevailed under the leadership of a man by the name of Alan Schulman, who still lives up in Palm Beach, who saw that this was going to happen regardless of what Palm Beach wanted. So he thought that this ought to be done in a constructive fashion, let's put it that way. But the money that we raised, which we needed to pay our employees, was their money, because we raised it as part of the Palm Beach Federation. So in order to get them to agree to seed us with the funds necessary so that we could run our business from day one, which was approximately, my recollection is about $500,000, which seems very small based on the budget of the Federation today. We had a few employees. We had to agree that we would not use the words Palm Beach in our name. So for the first few years of our existence, we were known as the South County Jewish Federation. And I recall a year or two after we formed our federation in '79, going to a national convention in Atlanta, and my little badge said Al Gortz, South County Jewish Federation. And people would come up to me from across the country and say, South County, where is that? Are you from Iowa? So a number of years went by and we legally changed our name to the Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach County, which is what it's known as today.
You mentioned Jim Bear. Who were some of the other names of individuals who helped you in this process? Well,
I think back to that rather acrimonious evening board meeting when they agreed that we would become independent. And I remember driving up in Jimmy's Cadillac with a few other people. There was Norman and Betty Stone, for one. They were members of the board as well. I'm not sure who else was there, but I will tell you, and as another anecdote, that in celebration of our becoming independent, when we left the board meeting in West Palm Beach, we went to a Howard Johnson's, which was then at the corner of Okeechobee and I-95, and celebrated at a Howard Johnson's, which is no longer there. Bruce Warshall was the professional. Jimmy was our lay leader. Bruce Warshall was our professional leader. I remember prior to October '79, when the Palm Beach Federation, we were part of the Palm Beach Federation, and they agreed that we needed an executive to help us run our affairs here. And I was on the search committee, and I interviewed Bruce Warshall for the job. And he became our executive director, or at that time, assistant executive director for the South County division of the Palm Beach Federation for a number of years. And the partnership between Jimmy Bear and Bruce Warshall was a significant one. They worked well together and helped organize the community and helped us in the very early stages of the growth of the Federation.
So now you have an organization. What were your early goals and objectives? What did the Federation start to do once it got itself going?
We were focused on some of the same things we're focused on today, which is to support Jews in need. So we had a division of our Federation, which was the Jewish Family Service, which took care of the things that our current Jewish Family Service takes care of. We had a JCC. We actually had a newspaper at one point, which was an organ where we could publicize the events, and it went out to the Jewish community that we were focused on. Shortly thereafter, JARC was organized, the Jewish Association for Residential Care, which took care of special needs situations, built up over the years to what it is today. Shortly after we organized, we started a day school, the Donna Klein Jewish Day School. Now we have 3 day schools. And we're building a yeshiva high school as we speak on our campus. But it was not magic. I mean, our history, if our Jewish history has taught us anything, it's taught us that if Jews need to take care of fellow Jews, and that's important in terms of Jewish survival. And that's what we're really focused on. There were things that came up like Ethiopian Jews, Soviet Jewry issues that we took care of as they became issues. But the primary focus was taking care of the needs of the Jews in our community that needed our assistance. And that formed the basis of our annual campaign. A couple of years after we were organized, I prepared the documents and we organized our Jewish Community Foundation, which was looking to grow endowments for the future of the Jewish community, sort of the savings bank as opposed to the checking account, which was the annual campaign. And that was formed, I'm guessing, in the very early 80s. And I remember another search committee that I was on to hire a director for our foundation, which turned out to be Arthur Jaffe, who I'm sure you remember.
Yes.
Who did an excellent job in the formative stages of the foundation.
So you now have an organization, you have goals and objectives. You said it started with about a $500,000 budget.
No, that was the money we had, so that's
Okay.
that was the budget.
So year 2, now you've got to start raising some money. How was that organized and how did it go? Was it easy in the beginning or not?
It's never easy to raise funds. I mean, we now have a campaign of about 15 million. Then we had a campaign of about 1 million. But we were excited about the task. We knew the needs would sell the need to raise the funds. And that's basically what happened. I think Norman Stone may have been the first campaign chair. And people warmed to the task because, as I said, we were a separate community. So now you did not have to travel up 95 for 45 minutes to go to a committee meeting. We had our own little storefront office on 2nd Avenue. Helene Eichler should be mentioned also, who was the assistant to Bruce and was here actually before Bruce. She was really the first employee. I think she may have been interviewed prior to my interview. But yes, it's never easy to raise funds, but we had a handful of people when we had urgent needs who would get together and you just say, we need to take care of this, and they'd write a check.
So you begin to grow, and there comes a time to leave your first nest. The Federation now sits on a campus. Tell us a little bit about how that was put together and what's on that campus.
Okay, well, there's a history long before we got to the campus, so let's talk about that. So I mentioned just a few moments ago that we started on 2nd Avenue in a storefront office. It was really very small. A couple of years went by and we moved to an office on Federal Highway just north of Belzer's Hardware. A little bit bigger. A couple of years went by as we continued to grow. We moved to an office in the 5th Avenue Shopping Center behind McDonald's. That was in the early 80s. We were there until we were able to purchase in the mid 80s, I'm guessing, that's my recollection in any event, the campus of the Spanish River Presbyterian Church on Spanish River Road, they were moving to a new campus they had built on Yamato, where they are today. That gave us the ability to run camps. The JCC, we actually had a campus with a gym and a larger location. Granville Prep is now located on that campus. Dick Siemens and his partners, Roy Flack, and a gentleman by the name of, I think it was Cohn, but I'm not sure, donated the 100 acres in the 80s with the idea that this would be the future campus.
Right, and tell us where those 100 acres were located.
That's located on Glades, just south of Glades Road and east of 441. And that's where our campus is located now. It's 100 acres, as you said, the largest of its kind in the country. So, and now is populated by the Federation, the JCC, JARC, Donna Klein Jewish Academy, the Hillel Day School. We're currently building a yeshiva high school. And the most exciting thing, which has taken 8 years to build, is Sinai Residences, which is a continuing care retirement community, a $235 million project financed by tax-exempt bonds. So we also have two HUD low-income housing projects that Dick Siemens was actively involved with on the campus, which were funded by HUD money, which house low-income elderly. I'm not sure what I'm leaving out, but we have the Sandler Center, which was originally designed as an Alzheimer's respite care kind of community, but that really hasn't taken off in that direction. So it's exciting. We were excited when we started this journey in 1979. I can't say that we envisioned a 100-acre campus with all those facilities that I just described, but we did envision that we would take care of whatever the needs of the Jewish community would be over the years, and they have significantly grown over the years. Now, we've been talking about Boca Raton, and this is about the Boca Raton Historical Society, but the Jewish Federation covers Highland Beach, Delray Beach, and Boca Raton. So what I've been talking about is just not Boca Raton. The various offices that we've just discussed were all physically located in Boca. We have facilities in Delray as well. But I think that answered your question.
Yes, very comprehensively, and lots of important points. In terms of the future, is the campus maxed out, or do you see things beyond Sinai?
The campus is not maxed out. We still have some room. As I said, we just 6 months ago signed an agreement with the Yeshiva High School, and they are building a high school on the campus. There is room. We haven't yet decided what to do with the additional 25 or so acres. Some people think that if Sinai Residence is as successful as it has been to date, and we hope it will be, that there might be a second Sinai Residence project. That is a future possibility. There are those that would favor doing other things with that land. But what we had to do with the land, we house the facilities I mentioned, but to run that campus before we open the doors takes $4 million a year, which is a significant amount of money when we're really raising funds for Jewish needs. Now we house all these agencies there, so that's a way of providing additional funds that they would otherwise have to pay in rent somewhere else. But what we've done with Sinai Residences is to attempt to monetize the campus so that we have funds coming in every year that will pay for the upkeep of the campus, so that the vast majority of the funds and the vast majority of the funds coming in from Sinai Residences can be used for the needs, Holocaust survivors and other things that we've talked about.
And let's go back to the foundation for a moment. you said, in effect, it was the bank account as opposed to the checking account.
I said it is.
If you had to talk about goals and objectives for the foundation, how do you go about raising money separate for the foundation versus the campus and the federation? What do you tell people that this foundation is going to do or does?
Well, it's to provide for, if you look at places like New York and Cleveland and Baltimore, which have substantial endowments, the funds that are thrown off from these endowments are used to support the ongoing needs of the Jewish community. Now, we started out as an infant federation. We were focused on the annual needs and not as much on the endowment. We are now, and have been for many years, more focused on the endowment. As a matter of fact, this year we've taken part, this year and last year, in a project called Create a Jewish Legacy, which is run by the Greenspoon Foundation out of Baltimore. They do this across the country. And we have been more successful in raising endowments than any other community in the entire United States. Unfortunately, we only have approximately, as we speak, $18 million of unrestricted funds. We have over $100 million in restricted funds and pledges. But you've heard of the Lion of Judah program.
Yes. But explain
the
what it is.
The Lion of Judah endowment, or Loge program, again, we have the largest number of women that have endowed their $5,000 annual gift, which is the Lion of Judah pin, or the amount they give each year. But to endow it, we have the largest number of endowed gifts, so that someone who gives $5,000 a year or more, obviously sometime they're going to pass on, they feel an obligation to the Jewish community. If they endow that gift with $100,000, it throws off $5,000 a year for perpetuity, we hope. So their obligation to the Jewish community survives their life.
Well, that's a wonderfully comprehensive piece of history. Let's move a little bit in the time remaining to Temple Bethel, and tell us a little bit about the founding, the growth, and the development of that institution.
Okay, well, fortunately there I wasn't involved in the founding. It was there for me when I came, which was nice. The building that they currently have on 4th was dedicated the year before I arrived. It may have been early '77, but it was before I arrived. So that was built for me. And there are others who could speak about the earlier years. But from '77 on, I can talk about to some degree.
Please.
Obviously, it's a Reform temple. It grew significantly from '77 till now. Rabbi Merle Singer was the second rabbi that I knew. There was a Rabbi Mendel who was here when I first came. Rabbi Singer came, I believe, in '78 and was our rabbi for decades until he was succeeded by Dan Levin. Both of them have done a phenomenal job in terms of growing that congregation. Not sure exactly. The physical plant was there, but the growth of the community, the Jewish community, went hand in glove with the growth of the synagogue.
In the little time that remains to us, from your perspective, what do you think this community should be looking at for the future? Where would you like to see us go, and what would you like to see us do?
Well, that's a difficult question. I can tell you, as you know, I'm the chair currently of the Jewish Federation. My term will be up in a month. But one of the things that I focused on was something called the Committee for the Future, which is just being organized because we expect a significant amount of funds from Sinai residences. So I've created, and with partners, other partners in the Federation, this concept of creating a think tank to answer the question you've asked. If you were asking me personally, I do a lot of the same things we're doing, but we could increase the projects that we do for special needs, for respite care, for those kinds of things. But we want to continue to support Jews locally throughout the world, 70 countries throughout the world, and in Israel.
Now, we're in a somewhat unique situation here in that we're into our second, third, and fourth generation Boca families. People have children, grandchildren, even great-grandchildren now who are being raised in Boca Raton. We also have an extraordinarily high percentage of elderly and frail elderly. How do you make the decision, or is there a decision to be made in allocation of resources to put more into the youth to grow that, or to affect our biblical obligation to care for those who went before us?
We like to raise enough funds so that we can allocate for all the needs. Obviously, funds are scarce. So every year from 1979 on has been there have been difficult decisions as to where our priorities should be. But that's an issue that we have to face every single year. Fortunately, I think we will have more funds to satisfy those needs. We have focused on what you say historically. The demography here is such that we are losing some of our significant givers, and some of those gifts are not endowed. So hopefully some of the things I talked about in terms of monetizing the campus will replace the dollars that we're losing as those people die off, so that we can support not only the frail elderly, the Holocaust survivors. And it's interesting to note that you would think that the number of Holocaust survivors that we serve would be decreasing because of the demographics, but more of the Holocaust survivors that are still alive are coming to our community. So we have more today than we had last year. Now it's unfortunately going to be a short-term problem, but it's something that we need to focus on at least for the near future. But all of those issues are issues and needs that we have to prioritize.
Now, one last question that I think for those who are watching this and know the time periods that we're talking about, we've come through a tremendous recession, and for those who watched all of the news and the movie about Madoff, they know that a lot of that hit very hard here. Would you say that we've overcome both the recession and the hurts from the Madoff scandal and are back on track, or are we still suffering through some of that?
We are back on track. We have not recovered to the extent. Our campaign at its height prior to 2008 approached $21 million, the annual campaign. After a few years of negative numbers, we're growing again. As I mentioned earlier, we're now at a campaign of approximately $15 million, but we're growing our endowments. But we have, over the course of the last 3 years, increased our campaign each of the last 3 years.
And is the campaign increasing across the demographics? Are young people becoming involved as well as the old war horses, as
I'm happy to say, and it was one of my priorities as chair, to populate our givers and our federation leadership across the demographics range in terms of, and we have leaders at all age groups. But we have people giving to the extent that they can give, and they can't replace people who are giving $250,000 a year who we're losing. So yes, we're making great progress in terms of bringing people into the community and building strategic partnerships with the younger generation. But that's a more long-term goal. We've made great progress, don't get me wrong, and it was one of my priorities, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, Al Gortz, esteemed lawyer, respected Jewish communal leader, thank you for what you've done and clearly what you continue to do. This has been great.
Thank you, and thanks to the Historical Society for undertaking this project.